Divorce doesn't happen in one moment. It's a slow rot, tiny pieces of your life crumbling away until you're left standing in the wreckage, too hollow to even cry about it. When Emily left, she didn't slam the door. She didn't scream. She didn't even leave a note. She just took her things while I was at work, left her ring on the counter, and disappeared. 12 years wiped away like a footprint in a rainstorm. I thought I'd be okay, that I could patch myself back together if I stayed busy enough. Work extra shifts, take up running, watch too much TV. It didn't work. The apartment felt like a coffin. That's why I drove. I packed a duffel bag with whatever clothes were clean and headed west, with no plan and no destination. The plan was simple. Drive until I didn't think about her anymore. Drive until I forgot the sound of her laugh, or how she used to trace circles on my wrist while she slept. But you can't outrun grief. You carry it with you, dragging it like a second, heavier body. I first saw the Sundown Motel just after 8 p.m. The sun had bled out into the horizon, staining the sky purple and orange like a fresh bruise. It crouched at the edge of the highway, a decaying row of rooms and a cracked asphalt lot, lit only by a flickering neon sign. Sundown Motel, though the O buzzed in and out. The place looked abandoned, but the vacancy sign glowed stubbornly. I shouldn't have pulled over. I should have kept driving into the night. But exhaustion crushed me, heavier than any good sense. I rolled into the parking lot. My tires crunched over broken glass and cigarette butts. Inside the lobby, the smell hit me immediately. Mildew, burnt coffee, and something else underneath, sharp and metallic, like pennies in the back of your throat. The man behind the counter barely looked up from his radio. His skin was waxy and thin, like old candle wax left out in the sun. His eyes didn't seem to focus on anything. There was a framed photo on the desk behind him, a black and white picture of the Sundown Motel, brand new, the sign untouched, the paint still bright. There were people in the photo, 24 of them, but the glass over the photo was cracked, spider webbing out from the center, right over the faces. Room 12, the man rasped. His voice was thick and wet, like he hadn't spoken in a long time. He slid a brass key across the counter. An actual key, not a key card. When I picked it up, the metal was warm. I asked how much for the night. He didn't answer. He just smiled a slow, cracked smile that showed too many teeth and pointed down the hallway. The hallway was long and dark. Only every third bulb worked, and the carpet squished underfoot as if the floorboards were damp. As I walked, doors lined the hallway, like broken teeth. Most were shut tight, but a few hung ajar, revealing glimpses of darkness inside, darker than the hallway itself. I reached room 12. The door had deep gouges across it, like someone had clawed at it from the inside. Inside, the room was worse than I expected. The carpet was threadbare and stained. The curtains hung crooked, one side ripped clean off its rod. The bedspread was an ugly paisley pattern, moth-eaten and stiff. The TV was a boxy relic from the 90s, perched on a tilting stand. There was no remote. The screen stared back at me, dark and dusty. But the worst thing was the smell. It hit me like a slap, sour, heavy, and wet, like something had died in the walls, and no one bothered to find it. I dropped my duffel onto the bed. The mattress wheezed under the weight. I turned to shut the door, and that's when I noticed it. The headboard. Someone had carved words deep into the wood. Not graffiti, not initials. It was a list, carved in jagged, desperate letters, some of them overlapping, as if whoever wrote them had been racing the clock. Rules to stay safe. Lock the door at sunset. Deadbolt and chain. Close the curtains. No gaps. Do not answer the phone after 11 p.m. Ignore all knocking, no matter what. Never look in the mirror after midnight. Don't sleep facing the window. If you wake and the door is open, hide. Stay silent. Leave before sunrise. No exceptions. It follows. It learns. Never speak its name, not even in your thoughts. Underneath the last rule, someone had scratched something hastily, almost illegible. Once you know the rules, it knows you. I ran my fingers over the gouged letters. The wood was splintered and raw. It hadn't been there for long. I felt something move under my skin, a shiver that went deeper than my bones. I tried to laugh it off. Some motel creepypasta bullshit. Urban legends for bored teenagers. But I locked the door anyway. Deadbolt. Chain. Just in case. The sky outside was black now, with no stars. The air in the room felt too heavy, like I was breathing through a soaked blanket. I closed the curtains, but there were gaps, big enough to see through if you got close. I found a musty towel in the bathroom and stuffed it into the cracks as best I could. My reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror watched me as I worked, its expression just a little too delayed, like a badly synced video. I didn't look at it again. By the time I sat down on the edge of the bed, the clock read 10:37 p.m. The radio on the nightstand crackled with static, even though it wasn't plugged in. I turned on the TV. Only static. No channels. My phone had no service. No Wi-Fi. Nothing. I was alone. Or so I thought. The phone rang at 10:58 p.m. 3 shrill mechanical rings, cutting through the thick, rotting silence. I sat frozen, my hand halfway to the receiver. Rule 3. Do not answer the phone after 11 p.m. I wasn't sure if it was a test, if answering before 11 would be safe, if the rules were literal, or if they were just warnings. The phone kept ringing. I backed away slowly, heart hammering, and watched the receiver vibrate slightly on the cradle. 3 more rings, then silence. The air didn't settle after. It felt heavier, thicker, almost humming. I sat back on the bed, clutching the scratchy blanket. At 11:23 p.m., the knocking started. 3 slow knocks. Heavy, purposeful, not polite, not hesitant. It came from the door. I squeezed my eyes shut, fists balled in my lap. Ignore it. Ignore it. Another knock, louder this time. Then something brushed against the door, like long fingers caressing the wood. I stared at the gaps in the towel-stuffed curtains, praying no light would slip through, no shadow would seep inside. Finally, after an eternity, the knocking stopped. At 12:17 a.m., the mirror rattled. I heard it before I saw it, a soft, vibrating noise, like glass trembling under tension. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. A dark shape grew inside the mirror, a human outline, but twisted, wrong, too tall, too thin. A face that was a void. I turned my back on it. Rule 5. Never look in the mirror after midnight. Even with my back turned, I felt its gaze pressing into my spine. At 3:03 a.m., the door opened. Not a slam, not a creak. It just drifted open. The chain lay on the floor, broken. Something had gotten in. The hallway outside wasn't a hallway anymore. It was a wall of black mist, writhing and churning, full of whispers. From inside that mist, footsteps entered the room. Software wet, dragging. I crawled behind the dresser, heart hammering so hard I tasted blood. I heard the thing breathing, saw its feet, pale, misshapen, wrong. It paused at the bed, sniffing the air like a dog. Then it spoke, not in words, but in a low gurgling sound that drilled into my skull. It knew I was there. It always knew. I clamped my hand over my mouth, tears streaming down my face. At 5:43 a.m., the thing finally left. The door swung shut. I waited until the faintest hint of blue light appeared through the window. Then I ran. I didn't stop driving until the Sundown Motel was a distant nightmare in my rearview mirror. I thought I escaped. I thought it was over, but the rules had followed. They always do. The first night in my new apartment, I found them again, scratched into the wood of my headboard, fresh, alive. The same desperate list, and beneath them, a new rule. 12. Running only feeds it. The knocking started again. The calls at 11 p.m., the mirror rattling. But now, it didn't just knock at the door. It knocked on the walls, on the windows, on the inside of the TV screen, from inside my closet. Some nights, it whispered Emily's name. Some nights, it whispered mine. I started hallucinating during the day, seeing shadows darting across the street, reflections smiling when I wasn't. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I bought salt, warded every mirror, nailed the windows shut. Didn't matter. The worst came 2 weeks later. I woke up standing outside my own apartment, barefoot, middle of the street, no memory of getting there. And when I looked up at my window, I saw myself standing there, smiling, waving. The thing had learned how to wear my skin. In my desperation, I started researching. Motels like Sundown exist all across the country, always slightly out of the way, always barely surviving, always empty, except for 1 or 2 unlucky souls. They move, they rot, they wait, and once you stay a night, even one night, you're marked. I found forums, message boards filled with stories like mine, pictures of motel keys no one remembered checking into, photos of rooms with gouged headboards, recordings of knocking, always 3 times. One thread had hundreds of replies before it was suddenly deleted. The last message posted simply read, "You can't break the rules once you start following them. You can only break yourself." I found a journal tucked under my bed one morning, old, moldy, written in a desperate, jagged hand. It told a story almost identical to mine, except the last entry said, "There's no sunrise, only different kinds of darkness." The final pages were smeared in blood. I tried one last thing. I set my apartment on fire. I thought if I destroyed the place, it would break the rules, burn them out of existence. But when the smoke cleared and the walls were blackened, ruins, the headboard was still there, untouched, waiting. That night, the knocking didn't stop after 3 times. It kept going, knocking, 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 until the door splintered off its hinges, and the thing walked in. It wasn't wearing a face anymore. It wore dozens, faces stitched together in a patchwork of agony, mouths whispering, sobbing, screaming. One of the mouths was mine. It reached out with long, blackened fingers and touched my forehead. And I remembered everything, not just my own life, but all the lives it had devoured before me. Hundreds, thousands, each one trapped in a room that never really existed, playing by rules they could never win, becoming part of it, fueling it, growing it. I didn't scream. There was no point. The moment it touched me, I understood. There would be no death, no escape, only endless, rotting existence, stuck inside the walls, inside the mirrors, inside the next knocking hand, waiting for the next poor soul to pull off the highway, too tired and hollow to resist, waiting for the next broken heart. If you ever find yourself alone on a deserted highway, if you see a flickering neon sign, if you find rules carved into wood, don't read them, don't believe them, because once you know the rules, it knows you, and it's already smiling.